Okay, welcome everybody. Our presentation today is called Brain Dead Fat Cats, Enriching Cats' Lives. This is for the benefit of shelters and rescues, so welcome to all of you. The presenter today is Steve Dale. Steve is a certified animal behavior consultant who has been a trusted voice in the world of pet health for over 20 years. You have likely heard him on the radio hosting two of his nationally syndicated radio shows, Steve Dale's Pet World and the Pet Minute, heard on more than 100 radio stations. And like myself, I am sure you have all read his many pet-related articles and magazines. Quite frankly, Steve has won awards in everything he has done. But as one that stands out in my mind is the AVMA Humane Award. And perhaps the most distinguished is yet to come, because it was to be awarded this August at the AVMA for his excellence in media. I welcome Steve.
Thank you. And you can hear me okay, everybody?
Perfectly.
Well, I don't hear everybody else saying perfectly. Everybody, I want to hear you. Oh, I wish I could. No, I can't. I know that's the problem with speaking virtually. So this is or was our piano playing cat. I can give a whole talk about the human-animal bond that I had with this incredible cat who died of feline hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a kind of heart disease in cats. That is by far the most common heart disease in cats. That is not what this talk is about, don't worry. But I began a fund with the Win Feline Foundation right there. Pretty much everything we know about cats was once funded by Win. So today I am branded, but with a great organization. What we know about enriching lives of cats and shelters, what we need to know about how much square footage you have per cat in a shelter, ideally. All of that and much more either supported and or funded in some way by the Win Feline Foundation. Everything we know about cat health, pretty much, was once funded by this organization that's been around now for 52 years. I've been on their board for, 15 years or something like that. And I'm very proud to say that. If there's time after, if you have questions about the Win Feline Foundation or my piano playing cat, I'm happy to answer those questions. Okay, so enrichment, that's what I'm here to talk about. And when I gave enrichment talks, and I did, going back 15 years or more, I would have to explain what enrichment is. I'm not gonna go into that into detail today. I've got a lot to cover, I'm gonna go fast. Typically I talk for at least an hour on this topic, often more than that. So I've condensed it all. So I apologize if I rattle through some of this. But the great thing is people know that term these days, enrichment. They understand pretty much, and you understand, I'm sure, pretty much what that term is. As I talk about this topic today, I want you to think, because I'm talking about cat caretakers, cat parents in their own homes. What I want you to think is, how can I apply this to a shelter environment? We know that space matters, we know that choice matters, and you'll hear me talk about that. So in 1985, an amendment to the Animal Welfare Act included environmental enrichment, the importance of it for all non-human primates, manipulating the environment to suit animals' normal, natural behavior or encouraging that behavior to match the environment. Another definition, this is from the USDA, behavioral enrichment is a management tool through which animal caretakers, wildlife rehabilitators, and others can improve upon their animals' mental and physical stimulation using both natural and artificial objects. Behavioral enrichment also addresses the space limitations that sanctuaries must by necessity provide. This is actually the definition that aligns somewhat closely to your situation. If we're talking about shelter professionals. And by the way, if you are involved in any way, employed by or volunteer at a rescue, a shelter, thank you. I mean, unsung heroes. Veterinarian in the shelter world, if you're there watching, thank you 1,000 times. We need you. In any which case, and I could talk about what this means to me, because without you, I don't know. I mean, and now we know so much more than what we did know. Let me go back to what I was saying. Space limitations, yeah, those are two words that relate to you, right? Space limitations. And we know today that having a double space, twice the amount of space, is so huge for these cats because they get to have a litter box in one place. It's like a condo that has 2 bedrooms. A litter box in one place, that's, well, a bathroom in a bedroom. A litter box in one place, and a place to sleep in another, place to hide if they prefer as well. And cats are more comfortable if they're given that choice or that opportunity, which I will talk about. Zoos are way ahead of us when it comes to enrichment. They have been forever, and they continue to be. These are warthogs at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. They're given a variety of different fruits and vegetables every day. They do make sure, the keepers do make sure they always meet nutritional needs of these animals, but the food is found at different places in their environment. And also the animals can choose, okay, I want more carrot today than lettuce, or more lettuce than carrot, or more fruits than vegetables, etc. We've all seen those Jane Goodall TV specials back in the day where she showed chimpanzees use tools. They actually use these tools like sticks to poke into a termite mound. And first they lick the stick so it's sticky, and then they put it in, they can pull it out, and there are a bunch of termites on it. Because they stick to it, and then the chimps lick off the termites. This is kind of a version of that at the Lincoln Park Zoo, again, where I live in Chicago. So these monkeys, there are holes throughout these artificial logs. Condiments are sometimes, not every day, and the condiments are rotated. So there's surprise. You never know what's going to be there, if anything will be there, but that's kind of the real world, right? So they use, and for some reason, again, this happened yesterday too. It's, even though I'm on widescreen here, in the background, there's a litter in the environment, in their zoo environment, which includes sticks and other debris of that kind. And they actually have learned to use sticks, and some of them will use their fingers to poke into the hole. Choice. Some of them prefer mustard. Some of them prefer ketchup, some barbecue sauce. They use a variety of different barbecue sauces. And the animals have their own individual choices, interestingly, as to what they like or what they prefer, and sometimes what they don't like at all, as they poke their finger into these artificial holes and get a condiment out of the hole. This is from a small zoo in the Bahamas. Who goes on a cruise and stops at the Bahamas and goes to the zoo? I do. And they have signs all over the zoo about how important enrichment is, what it is, and why they care about it so much. Back at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, chimpanzee named Keo talking on FaceTime or a platform like it to another chimpanzee. Who knows what they're saying? But this is interesting for those chimpanzees. So we do have a nation filled with brain dead fat cats. We're not challenging them to do anything. And as they lose it upstairs, they're gaining it around their middle. Cats moving indoors, I think, has been a good thing. Most people, statistics vary as to what that number is, but most people in America keep their cats indoors. They live longer that way. We know that. They have safer lives that way. We know that. Here are some of the hazards of being outdoors. They do get hit by cars, chased by stray dogs, antifreeze, where if you live in that climate where people are changing antifreeze, well, of course, just a thimbleful will kill a cat. There's wildlife that can kill a cat. Cold weather is a problem in a variety of ways. The cold weather itself, also the cats will slink under car hoods. It's like an electric blanket to them. It's all warm. And then somebody unknowingly goes to start their car, and you know what happens from there. Parasites, they're not protected generally against parasites. Human cruelty, I mean, in some places in this country, people actually shoot them. The overpopulation issue is an issue in part because some spay-neutered cats are, let me repeat that, some intact cats that are not spay-neutered are outdoors. Also, what kind of neighbor are you if the cat is going next door to use that person's garden as a litter box? And, you know, let's face it, well, the statistics are way off on this, and I don't want to get way off my topic to talk about this, but they still do kill animals, including songbirds. That doesn't happen, of course, if the cat's indoors. I know very few truly indoor-only cats that get hit by cars, or coyotes rarely ring people's doorbells and say, "Can I have your cat for lunch?" That doesn't happen very often. We do know that over half of our indoor cats are overweight and or obese. Overweight and or obese, you know what I mean? They're overweight or obese. That's not good. And I'm sure you know many of the reasons for that, but one that isn't talked about enough is they actually may be, obese cats I'm talking about, clinically depressed. They are not able to be a cat anymore. They're not physically able to chase or pounce. They can't even very often groom themselves because they can't reach around back to groom themselves. It's impossible to do if they are that obese. So what is normal cat behavior? Well, this is what cats do given their choice. So they sleep a lot. Cat naps, they're really good at that. So there's no question about that. But indoors only, most of our cats, instead of those numbers adding up to what they do here, which is 77%, it would add up to about 99.9%. There's no time spent hunting, traveling, or feeding. Well, feeding, yes, a little bit. But that's it. That's it. So that 2% feeding would be about 2%. But that's it. They don't have the opportunity to do what cats are born to do. If you are a cat, you are hardwired to seek out prey, period. They are born that way if you happen to be a CAT. So are indoor cats missing out because they don't have that opportunity? Well, not necessarily. So you don't have to go this far. You can't go this far at an animal shelter, I don't think. But you can provide, if you have cats that are together, which is a whole different topic, whether that should be done or not. But if you have cats that are together in groups, then certainly do some of this stuff. And certainly for those cats that are adopted, if you're advising clients, which is more of what this talk really is about, yes, giving them space is an important thing to do. So why am I even doing this talk? Well, enrichment does these things. It alleviates boredom. It's exercise for the brain, which is massively important. There's some physical exercise involved in that, and that can burn calories. It can prevent behavior problems. The number one reason why cats die, what do you think it is? Cancer, kidney disease, hyperthyroid disease. No, none of those things, not even heart disease that I spoke of earlier. It is behavior. And usually that behavior is cats thinking outside the litter box. So that's why cats, I don't know how you feel at your shelters, but that's nationwide why most cats are given up. Sometimes people say, well, I can't keep the cat anymore because of blah, 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 whatever the reason is. But it's the human-animal bond fracturing because of perceived bad behavior. I say perceived bad behavior because that's how we perceive it. The cat, of course, is not being bad just to be bad. Enrichment can interrupt the progression leading to compulsive behaviors, assist in dealing with behavior problems if they occur. It can be an outlet for anxiety. There are medical benefits, which I'll talk about just a bit in more detail as well. There are more resources, which means less competition in multi-cat homes, and most cat homes are multi-cat homes. Learning throughout life may delay or even prevent cognitive dysfunction, which is kind of like kitty Alzheimer's disease. It encourages natural behaviors, which is for what we do want to see, and it may be fun for the cat and even for the family. So those medical benefits, I'm not going to go into detail here, but for years and years, cats were thinking outside the litter box, and veterinarians back in the day said, must be a bacterial infection. Well, it turns out most of those cats never had a bacterial infection, so no wonder antibiotics never worked. Other drugs were thrown at the problem when it was realized that it had to do something with the bladder. So drugs were given, all kinds, anti-anxiety drugs. I'm going now more and more in time closer to where we are today. Later, anti-anxiety drugs were given to these cats. None of that really helped. What really helps more than anything else, it turns out, is enriching the environment. So we now know that idiopathic interstitial cystitis or idiopathic feline lower urinary tract disease may not be so idiopathic after all. Idiopathic means unknown cause. Well, the cause is an environment that never changes. Here's what's complicating though. Cats, more than anything else, hate change, right? You filled in that word before I said it, I'm sure. So how do you balance too much change and not enough change? Give it nothing to do, cats can get into trouble, and this can happen. Better than watching Netflix, right? So this video actually goes on for like an hour. I'm not going to play the whole video, but imagine what their water bill is. Cats can get into trouble in other ways too. And some of those other ways are explanations that people have for relinquishing their cats. I come home, I find the light that was on the ceiling on the floor, you know, and people do in fact give up cats for reasons like that. And if an enriched environment were provided in the first place, the cat wouldn't be getting into trouble in the second place. So what are some things people can do? At the far left, there are all sorts of products out there like this. This allows, it's a bird feeder. It allows the birds to come in. They get quite an audience. So maybe only brave birds do it in this particular household. And they get to eat for free, the birds do, and the cats get free Netflix, if you will, and that they get to watch the bird. At the bottom right, that's a Cornell, actually, a cat named Elizabeth. And that little contraption actually fits chipmunks, even squirrels inside. And Elizabeth knows that and is waiting for the show to begin. What comes inside the chipmunk or squirrel cannot see what's on the other side, maybe human beings, and it may be Elizabeth the cat. At the upper right, something I want you to keep in mind when you're talking about enrichment, what is fair? And to these gerbils, I'm not sure that having cats staring right at them in their face is particularly fair to them. Every house should have the following. Please talk to your state senator about this. It should be law. Elevated places where cats are allowed, even encouraged to go. Scratching post. We don't want to declaw cats. That's another talk. A window ledge. Easy enough. Whose home doesn't have a window ledge? Anyway, somewhere where they could view what's going on outside. Cozy hiding places. That is exceedingly important. You know, sometimes we want to get away. Sometimes cats want to get away from everything going on as well. Now, one way to do that is to provide an elevated place. Some cats want to go to that elevated place because they feel secure, and that is their place to get away. They're kind of afraid, concerned, worried, whatever word you want to fill in. They're not feeling in control. Cats are control freaks. To feel in control or confident, they go up high. Other cats are just confident cats who want to view the world below them because they are lords over that world. They want to go up high as well. Here's a new term. So I talked about enrichment. That's what this talk is all about. Most of you know that term at this point, though I defined it just a bit. Here we have Contra freeloading. That's a new one. And that's such an interesting concept that researchers are now looking at. They've looked at rats, lab animals, as well as some animals in captivity like grizzly bears. Contra freeloading occurs when animals would rather, they prefer to work for food even though identical food is freely available. Now that is counterintuitive to everything I learned in biology, but it really happens. So from Dr. Vinverga, this video from a zoo shows meerkats. Whatever's in that aluminum foil pan that meerkats eat, I don't know what meerkats eat, but whatever that is, same exact thing, a duplicate of that is inside this long box. There's also a bit of a maze inside that box. So not only do the meerkats have to work to get in the box, they have to go through this little maze in the box to get to that identical food. It's a pan just like the pan you see there. Why are they totally ignoring the food that's right there and so determined to get inside there? That is what contra freeloading is, right there. I love this video because it really shows what it's all about. Cats have not been studied, as far as I know, regarding contra freeloading. If any of you are researchers, please do that study because I'm certain we're going to see the same result that cats prefer that. Cats are prey animals. They're predators and they're prey animals. The predatory part of a cat is born to hunt, to seek prey, to pounce on it, and born to hunt. So this is our house. When our cat, who's now 17, was younger, we had all these, we still have some, but we had all these different places in the house where Roxy, the cat, might or might not on some days, or at some times, find kibble, moist food we could put in different places by turning one of those, you know, those things that you keep food fresh in, those plastic tops, turn it upside down, put some moist food, because she gets moist food. Most of it is moist she gets. By turning it upside down, putting some moist food in there, just remember where you put it. Otherwise, you could get insects food before the cat does. This is one product called the hunting feeder. A veterinarian, Dr. Liz Bales, created the product, but there are lots of products out there now like it. I'm not going to show the whole video. It's too dramatic. But I want you to see the product. And that's it. Cat rolls it around, kibble falls out of it, and indeed, cats do need to hunt. And today, there are so many feeders available. This is a small sampling of what's out there. And I love it. I love the idea that these cats have to work to get their food. Now, if your cat's on a prescription diet or your adopter's cats, no, of course not. If you have 8 cats in a house, people do, then what do? Well, I say you feed 80% of the food where you control the food and you know what each cat is getting, but about 20% you can still do this sort of thing with. So you don't have to buy anything. This is just from a 6-pack. Our cat Roxy, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I did this. You could use egg, you know, the things that eggs come in, egg cartons, and put kibble in there. The important part of this video, and this is so important, and I hope you saw that carefully, because not only can you use something as simple as this, but now, because I use this, beer for me is a tax write-off. I think that's fair. All sorts of toys, of course, available. And it's not how many toys the people have for their cats. It's rotating those toys. Otherwise, they become old and boring. So rotate toys, understand the kind of toys that your individual cat likes. You can redefine toys. You don't think of an empty box as toys, right? Put an empty box, a clean, you know, fairly clean one, of course, in a small one where a cat is in a shelter. For most cats, that's like, wow, that's really interesting. And the cat will jump in the box. Catnip, silver vine, old school, yes. But for most, not all, but for most cats, that's a good thing. It's really interesting. You could roll up an aluminum foil ball that they could bat around a ping pong ball. So a shelter can invest in 100 ping pong balls. They're easy enough to clean, right? That investment is probably, I don't know what ping pong balls cost for sure, but it's probably under 35 bucks or something. Maybe not for 100, but for 25 or something. Point is, you get very inexpensively. For shelters, 2 very important words, very inexpensively, I'm aware. But you can create all sorts of things to do. You can have kids create enrichment toys for cats. Shelters do that now. What a great thing to do, right? So you could have boxes set up. They color pictures of cats on those boxes. And now you've got colored boxes with crayons, colored boxes. You know, the kids enjoy doing that. They could see the box in with the cat later. Maybe they'll even adopt the cat. You get the idea of what I'm saying. You can integrate the community in doing these sorts of things. Cats can be kept outdoors safely. And that's, in fact, a trend now. People are walking with harness and leashes with cats. And I love that. This is to the bottom right, it's a system of interconnected tunnels that you could buy for cats. Right above that is a tent for a cat. There are all kinds of things that could be done. I love the concept of catio. This takes it to the extreme.
So the cats come out of the house through the little trap door here, the plastic flat door. They go underneath this bench, and they drop through a hatch right here. And there's a tunnel that goes between the rafters underneath the flooring here. And it comes right out and into this overhead bridge that takes them all the way out into the cat land, which is 12 feet tall and 10 feet wide. And from there on, it's just pure Disneyland for them.
So, I mean, you don't have to go that far necessarily. And one way to enrich a cat's life is to introduce another cat. Not always enriching. Cats always don't appreciate having another cat around. It's the way that they are introduced and never that way. But I will tell you, and that's a whole different talk, when they're introduced very gradually, it generally works out. Cats and dogs, they don't fight like cats and dogs, not really, really. A quarter of the people that have a cat now have a dog, and that have a dog now have a cat. What about more unusual pets? Sometimes, sometimes not. I'm not necessarily a fan of having a bearded dragon out with a cat unsupervised or a pet rat. These are my parents. Don't they look like proud grandparents there? They're walking our cat, Roxy, when she was very young. That's a cat, Ricky, below that at the WGN radio studio. Can you believe computer terminals ever look like that? You could take the cat out into the world. So when a cat is socialized when they are very young, very often, they actually like that, to be with their people. We have so many misconceptions, and one of those is that you cannot teach cat things. Of course, you could teach cat things. I gave a talk like this once, and the lady, the above picture, she said, I have an agility course in my house for our cat. And that's what that image is of in Key West. That guy has trained cats that some of you may have seen. This is from a cat show. It's a Japanese bobtail doing agility for cats. Look at it. Can you believe what you're watching? I don't necessarily recommend everything. Certainly not without adult supervision. I don't recommend that. But cats are all about their sense of smell. So I mentioned treats earlier. I mentioned catnip earlier. Putting that randomly, unexpectedly in surprising places around the house can be great. Cats don't like too much change, and some smells can offend them. So I really wouldn't go to a friend's house like I tell people to do with dogs and say, I want to borrow a dog toy. I wouldn't borrow a cat toy or cat bedding and bring it home to your cat. That is offensive. But providing little changes in their environment is necessary, and they can be olfactory. So something like lavender, spraying a bit of lavender on a clean t-shirt or a clean rag or something like that, and just putting it somewhere for your cats to discover as just one example. Meeting your cat's environmental needs is what I'm talking about. Here is a brochure that is absolutely my favorite four-letter word, free, from the American Association of Feline Practitioners. I hope you like me on Facebook. Like me. Everyone wants to be liked. Decoding Your Cat. That's a brand new book. I was honored to write the foreword. It was authored by members of the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists. It is just out right now on pre-order, available very, very soon, but you can pre-order right now on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. It tells you everything you need to know about cat behavior and makes it possible to do the impossible, and that is to decode cats. I am right on time, I believe. Carolyn? Somebody? Hello?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure you guys were there.
Fell on my mute button.
Okay.
So
I hope we have time for questions.
I hope we do. I hope we have questions.
Okay.
We had a nice selection of shelters on.
Thank you. And I cannot thank people that work or volunteer at shelters enough. And this talk wasn't shelter specific, but hopefully you get the idea. Okay. And one of the biggest reasons of all that cats land in shelters is the human-animal bond fractures, and enrichment can at times prevent that from happening.
Okay, question rolling in. Will slides be available? I wasn't quick enough to write down all the links. So indeed, you will receive a copy of this presentation, and you'll also be able to ask us any questions, and we can forward them to Steve if you haven't received all the answers.